warm welcome to another session of this discussion in advanced course in organizational behavior. Today I will discuss the second module of this course, that is diversity in organizations, which is one of a trending discussion, a hot topic, a pioneering topic in the area of management, that how people from various cultural, religious, biological diversity also garner inclusiveness and importance to the organization. In this unit, we will talk about that how diversity can be identified within any organization and how that diversity can be of great significance that can lead to not only different positive attitudinal outcomes within employees or among employees, but also within organization, leading to increased organizational efficiency and effectiveness. When I am talking about diversity, organizational effectiveness and efficiency, it is not only about leading to the best outcome or maximum outcome, it is also about that how the organization is compatible enough to retain that diversity in form of talent and then using that talent to make the organization absolutely functional. Now, getting into the details that how diversity can be understood in any organization, we have to start from the base level or root level discussion while talking about that what is diversity. Now, if I say that even that all individuals are unique in themselves, everybody has something or the other good, but the point is that to what extent the world or any organization is capable to identify that uniqueness in any individual as an employee, and then we value that uniqueness in terms of contribution to the organization. If we are unique at one point, then we are different from the other person also, but that difference is not something that we have to differentiate or we have some differential attitude or we have some preferential attitude towards the other person. A positive thought process says that every individual is unique, even there is difference between two people, that difference has to be understood to be highly significant. So, this is all about diversity. So, when we are unique, then managers sometimes forget that they need to recognize and capitalize on differences to get the most from the employees. Now, here at this point we have to discuss that if managers forget, then we have to give a wake up call to all the organizations and all the managers that they have to value the differences, they have to understand the significance of uniqueness of every individual to minimize preferential attitude, differential attitude, discrimination or stereotype. But definitely if we are understanding the significance of that uniqueness or particular characteristics of that individual, then it can lead to enhanced organizational outcomes. However, the point is again coming back to the main agenda of the discussion is that to what extent effective diversity management can increase an organization's access to the widest possible pool of skills, knowledge, abilities and ideas. It is not that any person who is belonging to one particular culture or region can be considered as a pool of knowledge, skills and abilities. Persons with some different skills or uniqueness should also be considered as a unique and carrying some pool of knowledge, skills, abilities and ideas. And when the organizations become more efficient to identify those pool of talents, then organizations become more innovative and more effective and diverse in terms of positive benefits. Now, here positive benefits is about positivity about the individual as an employee and as well as in terms of organization. Therefore, diversity can be a greatest asset for any organization to recognize the differences among people and how those individual differences can be in form of age, it can be in form of gender, it can be in form of race, it can be in the form of ethnicity and abilities or maybe any sexual orientation, but ultimately influencing employee performance. Therefore, managers can develop awareness about characteristics and manage a diverse workforce effectively. Now, what parameters that we have mentioned just now in terms of characteristics like age, gender, race, ethnicity and abilities, then definitely every person is different in its own way on these parameters. It can be about age, that there is larger population of young professionals, or there can be uniqueness in when it comes to age, when in one country or organization the age has a larger population with the age of 50 or above. It all depends from country to country. It can be about gender, where to what extent in any organization male and female employee orientations are differing from one another. Maybe in one culture of any organization, female workers are given some higher positions to perform effectively, or maybe in another organization there is some kind of discrimination or differentiation to appoint any female employee to a higher position. Now, this is a generic statement that I am making right now, but there are some deep assumptions and considerations that in what manner these differences exist. There are several factors that function behind this one particular situation, or it can be in terms of ethnicity or race, where culture and norms dominate a particular geographical area and how those race and ethnicity is being considered of prime importance, while giving more importance to their language as well. Now, this is a way how to understand diversity, how to introduce that diversity in the day-to-day functioning of any organization. So, this is the main agenda of the discussion, that how diversity is being managed at workplace. So, the next is that what is diversity in the workplace? We can define workplace diversity as not just about employing a broad cross section of people from different demographics. It is about creating a company culture where the organization values and respects individual differences, including gender, age, sexual orientation, religion, language, abilities, professional backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds and educational backgrounds. Thus, the goal is to foster an inclusive environment. Now, here the inclusive environment in terms of age can be that it is not only that fresh faces are being recruited, even the old age workers are also coming forefront to take up some important roles based on their experiences. It can be about sexual orientation, it is not only about male and female, it is about transgender, it is about gay, it is about lesbians, who can be the major part of any organization and contribute to organizational success. Initially, society and organizations were inhibited to how to include such orientations in the workplaces, but at the same time with the advancement of time and thought process, even people with different sexual orientations are also becoming part of any work organization. It can be about religion, it can be language, that how people coming from different religious and language backgrounds also be inducted in any organization based on their capabilities. Initially, there used to be a inhibition that how one employee can join another organization in a particular different state because of language barrier, because of culture shocks they will experience. But because of globalization, this barrier has also evaded, and ultimately employees are becoming part of every organization irrespective of geographical location. So, that means there is reduced form of workplace ostracism. That means how people were excluded from the organization or from the group based on their geographical backgrounds. Thus, the goal is to foster an inclusive environment where everyone feels valued and can contribute their unique perspective and experiences. When people with different orientations become part of the organization, it develops a feeling for that particular person that he is being heard, his voice is being heard, and there is sense of belongingness and integration with that organization. Therefore, diversity in the workplace refers to individual differences in race, gender, ethnicity, religion, age, sexual orientation and cognitive ability. Now, here cognitive ability means in terms of thinking, in terms of reasoning, in terms of deduction of the facts and figures, how people tend to understand one particular situation from different point of view based on their work experiences and how they use those abilities to come to appropriate decision making. This definition encompasses culture and personal aspects and also include education, skills, personalities, experiences, marital status, political beliefs and financial status. Now, marital status seems so simple, but it has very deep implication, major implication at the workplaces, because whenever any female employee is being inducted or recruited in any organization, then to what extent the marital status will allow that female employee to contribute maximum time to the organization will define whether she can be part of that project or not. So, these are the different factors that identify person unique and how they contribute to diversity and in nutshell contributing to the organization. In other words, workforce diversity refers to the important similarities and differences among employees of organization. Next comes levels of diversity. Now, we have discussed the definition from a broader perspective. But if we are going deep into the discussion that what is diversity at workplace, then another discussion pops up is that diversity is sometimes insidious, which nobody can see within the person, and sometimes it is very explicit, that it is very much apparent, it is very much visible to the other organizational members. From that perspective, diversity or demographics reflect diversity in two forms. It is surface and deep level diversity. Now, surface level diversity includes observable characteristics, which is very much explicit. People do understand those differences, such as age. We understand who is a newer entry in the organization, who is a senior most employee or aged employee in any organization. Race, gender, physical capability or any disability and body size all has a significant impact on organizational dynamics. It also encompasses ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion and tenure. We can easily identify anybody's sexual orientation in terms of transgender, gay, lesbian. We can easily identify the religion of the person from that, what is his religious background, from where he is coming, what is his base, geographical base, or it can be tenure. While any employee or co-worker can be a very senior employee, it can be a contemporary or it can be extreme junior. So, these characteristics often lead to stereotypes and discrimination within an organization, but do not necessarily reflect an individual's skills, knowledge, thoughts or opinions. Now, based on this explicit characterization of every individual, we indulge in the act of discrimination or stereotype. For example, any age. We know we tend to discriminate, oh, he is a very senior person, he will not be able to perform a particular task, or the person has become very aged, now he should be shifted to another position where he can only just make menial contribution to the organization, although he is at the verge of retirement. Now, these kind of stereotypical differentiation or discrimination will be very much apparent when a person is trying to understand diversity based on surface level, because it is clear that the person's age is high, the person's ethnicity or culture background is visible, and we tend to exclude also. Whereas, deep level diversity encompasses characteristics that are not readily visible, such as your opinion, your capabilities, your level of knowledge, your level of skills or expertise you have, because it is not related to your age, it is not related to your race. It is absolutely an individual's competency that we have within ourselves, and that is only demonstrated when any task is being performed by an individual. So, these characteristics are readily visible and include religion, political beliefs, opinion, values and attitudes. Deep level diversity also includes personality, cognitive ability and deductive reasoning skills. For example, introversion, extroversion, it can be an individual's persona, which entails how a person will respond to any crisis in a very distinctive manner, because it is an individual's understanding of the situation, and how you will react or respond to the situation will be something very insidious. We cannot easily just magnify and we will understand that how the other person will respond. So, these are the deep level diversity or deep level characteristics which makes an individual different from the other person. But ultimately diversity is existing in both the forms. If it is surface level, it is about all the physical or objective characteristics, and if it is about deep level, it is all about psychological or insidious characteristics of an individual. Attitude, belief, opinion, skills. Maybe a person who is very young may not be able to perform a particular task, rather a person who is very aged based on his experience can perform the same task in a better manner. So, here comes deep level diversity. Now, at the same time there are also layers of diversity in the workplace. It is not only about race, religion, culture, ethnicity, age or knowledge, skills and abilities. It can be experienced at different layers. How we experience? For example, the first is organizational, external, internal and worldview diversity. These are the 4 layers of diversity, and when combined they provide a comprehensive view of workplace diversity. So, what is organizational diversity? This includes departments, different departments that exist and that makes an organization functional. Levels of seniority, what is the hierarchy in every department? How many designations do exist in any organization to make it highly functional? Job function, roles, responsibilities and workplace location. Every organization has different offices and locations. The more the organization is successful, the more organization tends to move in different corners of the world to capture the market and to retain talent. This is organizational diversity. Ongoing management and tracking of diversity can help build an organization's brand. Definitely, when different offices are being established in different corners of the world, in geographical locations of particular country, that means their objective is to create a brand. This brand based on different job opportunities, roles, responsibilities, levels of seniority and structure of the organization. Thus, in turn increases a company's desirability as a potential employer and place of business. The more the company is spreading across the globe, the more job opportunities are being created, more talent is attracted towards those organizations and that fosters business. As a result, these organizations become more attractive, interesting and inclusive and help forge strong connection among employees. Now, in this sentence the one word is inclusive. That means organizations are focusing on being extremely inclusive or fostering an inclusive environment within organizations, because when they are establishing themselves in different locations, then they are accepting people from diverse backgrounds. The other is external diversity. This is another layer. This describes characteristics that an individual has direct control over. For example, this includes education, experiences, appearances, religion and socioeconomic status. This is very much visible to all the employees, to each other, that this is the designation, this is the tenure of his job, these are the experiences and this is education that makes him qualifying for a particular designation or position. So, this a person cannot hide, it is very much explicit and becomes external to the organization. So, this type of diversity is dynamic as it is influenced by the actions taken by the individual throughout their life. That means, there is upgradation. The person will try to learn new skills based on his education, they will try to enhance their appearances, they will follow their religious aspects and they can also enhance their socioeconomic status in different forms. So, this is external diversity. The other is internal diversity. This consists of static characteristics. Now, here static means stable characteristics which will not change in long run until and unless there is some change in the situation or there is dramatic change in any life changing situations. So, these characteristics that an individual is born into, such as age, race, gender or ethnicity. The person has strong heritage roots, that they feel connected to their culture, they feel connected to their race and ethnicity, they have a desire to be rooted to or connected to their values and norms, and they are keen to exhibit those kind of values in their day to day behavior. So, these characteristics often arise in case of workplace discrimination and bias. how we understand this kind of diversity. When people are there with diverse background, but people are also indulging in the process of stereotyping and discrimination or bias, then we understand that the other colleague, other co-worker has a different diverse background, and then they indulge in the act of discrimination or stereotyping. Stereotyping, that we have a particular belief about one particular group that a person belongs to, and we also form a same kind of impression for that person. Discrimination, it can be about racial discrimination, for example, discrimination between black and white. It is still existing in different cultures, but it exists only when people know, when people understand, and then they indulge in such acts of stereotyping, biasness or discrimination. And the other layer is worldview diversity. This diversity can be experienced in form of unique experiences we acquire over time. We are working at workplaces, we are engaging in act of public dealings, we interact with people at different levels of designation, we interact with people across the world, and then we garner some unique experiences at workplaces. Those experiences are so unique in nature that can influence an individual's behavior to a larger extent, and a perception also varies from time to time, that how we can view the whole world. It is not that we are working at organization, we have a stable perception about the world and we will continue to work with that stable perception. It is never like that. It is always opposite, that when we are moving in the world, we acquire different experiences. Those acquiring of experiences every time in long run become so diverse that the perceptions also become diverse in nature. Therefore, worldview diversity is also formed through a combination of internal, external and organizational diversity. It encompasses all the factors which are very much apparent, which are very much insidious, which are very much open, and based on those combination of those factors, we tend to have a very different or diverse experience that constitutes to world view diversity, right. All right. Now, along with diversity, there are another two concepts that go parallel with diversity, that is inclusion and equity. Inclusion means that we are creating an organizational culture that creates an experience where all employees feel their voices will be heard and there is a sense of belongingness and integration. So, this is inclusiveness. This integration is in form of accepting people from different race, ethnicity, backgrounds, language, religion. They all are respected, they all are valued, and their opinions are being respected and being heard at a larger extent. This is inclusiveness, which functions or which works parallel with diversity. And the other is equity. With equity comes equality. When we talk about equity, only equity, it is about fairness, it is about justice, that whatever the person has performed, irrespective of his diverse background, the person is eligible for the reward based on his performances, and that becomes quality as well. That is, wages are as per the individual's performance irrespective of his diverse background. So, equity refers to the concept of fairness and justice, such as fair compensation and substantive equality. Equality, that every person must be given a chance to perform all the different kind of roles that exist in any organization to function well, not only based on education or any religious background. At the same time, equity usually also includes focus on societal disparities and allocating resources and decision making authority to groups that have historically been disadvantaged and taken into consideration of persons' unique circumstances. As I mentioned, that all wages, all rewards, all resources should be allocated equally to all the employees from different backgrounds, and they must be given a chance to voice their opinion in form of contribution that they are making to the organization. So, this unique circumstances can be created while accepting, adjusting the treatment and accordingly, so that the end result is equal. Now, here equal again means that every resource is being provided to every individual. It is not based on discrimination or biasness. So, along with diversity comes inclusion and equity, and they work all in combination. It is not that only diversity will exist and there is no inclusion and equity. If diversity is there, if diversity has been perceived in a very positive manner, then inclusion will also be there and equity will also be there. Thus, diversity is an important concept in OB because diversity, inclusion and equity open a new window to help build a workplace that is conducive and welcoming to every employee, opening the company up to the best talent. The objective of this diversity, equity, inclusion is not only that we are just incorporating or welcoming or accepting or adjusting with diverse background. There is a larger objective to it, that how the talent, the diverse talent which earlier was getting wasted, now can be used, can put to an advantage and to a benefit to the organization and to the individual as well. So, this is the importance, significance of diversity, equity and inclusion. All right. Next is some important aspects of workplace diversity. This looks very positive and sounds very welcoming, that diversity is a very positive term, but along with diversity come some negative aspects also, that is discrimination. We note a difference between things and we refer to unfair discrimination, which means making judgments about individuals based on stereotypes regarding their demographic group. Now, demographic group means age, gender, race, ethnicity. We tend to not to accept or adjust or welcome the other backgrounds, and we try to discriminate and tend to keep those groups of people at a disadvantaged situation. So, it is crucial to understand that recognizing one employee's qualifications for a role of another's exceptional leadership skills is not unfair discrimination. Now, here even when we are talking about diversity, even when we are talking about discrimination, there is a thin line. Either we are biased or we are not discriminating based on qualifications. Sometimes there is a collision. We say person who is hailing from any demographic background, but possesses better leadership qualities, we tend to perceive it as discrimination, but at the same time it is not discrimination, it is not unfairness, it is not injustice. It is about rationality, it is about appropriateness of assigning any particular role to an individual employee. So, these objective evaluations are the bedrock of sound organizational decisions, providing a solid foundation of our actions. So, that thin line, that what is discrimination, what is biasness has to be understood with appropriate decision making. This understanding will only come with experience, this understanding will come only when an employee is facing any particular situation to understand those nitty-gritties or nuances of those situations. Although many of these actions are prohibited by law and therefore are not part of almost any organization's official policies. That means, no matter what, discrimination still is being prohibited in every organization. There are legal policies and procedures, there is implementation of legislation to curb the tendency of discrimination and documented every year, and sometimes even discrimination is prohibited, but still it exists and sometimes it gets unnoticed by the authorities because they are not reported. So, discrimination is another aspect of diversity which goes parallel, and how organizations maintain that balance, that diversity is there, but welcome attitude is more there and discrimination is reduced. These are the forms of discrimination that people tend to experience. For example, discriminatory policies and practices, actions taken by representatives of the organization that deny equal opportunity to perform or unequal awards for performance, which is something has become more weakened in last few years. Initially there were policies, discriminatory policies that existed in organizations, that particular people from a particular diverse background will not be given opportunity to be employed. So, for example, older workers may be targeted for layoffs because they are highly paid and have lucrative benefits. In some countries, for example, in US, there is increase in old age population. So, they draw better salaries and they have some pension benefits. At the same time, in US itself, there is diminishing young population and there find discrepancy that how to recruit or induct young population in those places. So, there is a discrepancy and that is where such kind of discriminatory practices are being followed to induct more young population. Whereas, if we talk about country like India, maybe till in another 20 years or 10 years, the young population will be in billions and old age population will go down. So, how to fit that young population in all the job positions, that again is an issue of discriminatory policies, because even old age population also needs some kind of employment. This is one form of discrimination. The other is sexual harassment. Unwanted sexual advances and other verbal or physical conduct of sexual nature that create a hostile or offensive work environment. These are the kind of discriminatory acts which includes, for example, salespeople at one company went on company paid visits to strip clubs, or they would invite strippers into the office to celebrate promotions. These are the forms of discrimination that how they are trying to pose it to be more superior than the other in form of sexual advances. The other is intimidation. Maybe an inferior person will be intimidated, that person is bullied and he will also receive threats from his or her co-workers from a specific group of employees. This is intimidation. There is threat that is being given based on discrimination or biasness. For example, African American employees at some companies have found nooses hanging over their workstations. This is a way to bully or give threat to some people with different racial background. And the other is mockery and insults. Jokes are negative stereotypes, sometimes a result of jokes taken too far. For example, making mockery out of any person's racial background or ethnic background, and how people tend to take it so seriously that it can converge into a different form of conflict at workplaces. For example, Arab Americans have been asked at work whether they were carrying bombs or were members of terrorist organizations. Definitely, every person is not terrorist, but if we try to relate one country's specific characteristics with every person of that country, that mockery can result to something devastating. This is a form of discrimination. Now, the point is, which is very much apparent, when we are discriminating, when we are biased on the face of an individual, then these form of discrimination can also lead to conflicting or violent behaviors. Another is exclusion. While not appointing any particular person from different background or different background for a particular position, and he or she is being excluded. Not only appointment, it can be about social events, it can be discussions or informal meeting, and can occur unintentionally as well. Maybe co-workers are not realizing what they do in form of discrimination, but it tends to happen. For example, many women in finance claim they are assigned to marginal job roles or are given light workloads that do not lead to promotion. Why? Because they are being considered as inferior physically and mentally, and they are being underestimated based on their competencies. The other is incivility, disrespectful treatment, including behaving in an aggressive manner or abusive manner, or interrupting the person or ignoring his or her opinions. Female lawyers know that male attorneys frequently cut them off or do not adequately address their comments. That is snubbing or being a gatekeeper. They will not allow any female employee to move ahead in their offices or careers. This is incivility. So, these are the different forms of discriminatory practices that exist in any organization, although diversity focus is there. But at the same time, these kind of practices also exist, and how organizations make efforts to diminish these kind of discriminatory behaviors. Therefore, whether intentional or not, discrimination can lead to serious negative consequences for employees, including reduced productivity, citizenship behaviors, negative conflicts, and increased turnover. For example, any female employee can leave that organization when she experiences that discrimination, that she is not being given better job to perform. Only menial jobs will not help to grow in her career. They will definitely look for another job prospects where there is more growth and opportunity. They will tend to not to engage in citizenship behaviors. Now, citizenship behaviors are the helpful behaviors. They are discretionary behaviors, but when they are being discriminated, they tend to withdraw themselves from performing such positive forms of behavior. Definitely there is going to be negative conflicts and increased turnover. Unfair discrimination also leaves qualified candidates out of initial hiring and promotions. Even if an employment discrimination lawsuit is never filed, a strong business case can be made for aggressively working to eliminate unfair discrimination. But how many of the employees would take that step to eliminate such kind of practices? But yes, at the same time, this also adds to our understanding that there are organizations, and currently every organization has a particular cell to take care of all these grievances in terms of discrimination, and how organizations takes stern actions to eliminate such kind of unfairness. Now, another aspect is stereotyping. As I mentioned that we try to judge the person based on the group he belongs to. This is stereotyping. So, stereotyping acts as a fuel that powers the discrimination engine. They go hand in hand. As soon as we come to know that the person belongs to a particular race or ethnicity, we tend to discriminate ourselves immediately, that he should not be included as part of the workforce. This is stereotyping because he is carrying the DNA of that particular race. So, stereotypes can be insidious in nature, not only because they may affect the perpetrators of discrimination, but also because they can affect how potential targets of discrimination see themselves. This leads to stereotype threat. That means even the person who is stereotyped has a threat, and they tend to absorb that kind of stereotyping or discrimination within themselves, that if I will apply for the job in a particular organization or for a particular post, maybe I will be stereotyped and I will not be selected for the position. This kind of threat they develop for themselves, and they also perceive themselves in a very stereotypical fashion. So, stereotype threat, it is a degree to which we agree internally with the generally negative stereotype perceptions of our groups, that people will perceive me as what they want to see within me, and I am like that. So, that threat is very much insidious. Along with stereotype threat comes a fear of being judged when we are identified with the negative connotations of that group, and this can happen when an individual is in a minority situation. Now, it is not only about race or ethnicity, it is also about that maybe one female is there among all the male candidates, and she can also experience stereotype threat that, oh, only if one female is there, that is me, maybe I will not be selected. So, this kind of thought process when develops, then this kind of thought process is known as stereotype threat. An individual who becomes a stereotype becomes his own enemy. As the person may unconsciously exaggerate the stereotype, the person himself starts finding flaws in his own group itself, that why I am being stereotyped, because some lackings are there in the group to which I belong, and that is why I am being discriminated. Employees may engage in self handicapping, that, oh, I may not get selected because I belong to that group, so I will not get a fair chance. This is self handicapping, and at the same time the person withdraws his actions to take a positive action towards his job. People may overcompensate for the stereotype threat they feel or work to avoid conforming to the stereotype. Now, when that threat is there, how to cope with that threat? A person who experiences stereotype threat, he also tries to indulge in different acts or actions just to prove the external world that even if he or she has been stereotyped and what they will perceive me, it is completely different from the group that I belong to. So, here it is like overcompensate for the stereotype, creating a different image based on the group that he belongs and then creating his own identity. This is overcompensating for the stereotype. And at the same time, stereotype threat can also serve as a brain drain for employees, causing them to deplete their working memories so that they do not perform as well on employment test or training. Now, definitely when they have that stereotype threat that I am belonging to that group, I may not be selected. This also undermines their performance, because a thought or threat has already dominated an individual's thought process. It has influence on the ability of an individual, and if they are performing on the test, that performance also diminishes, because there is no support from the outside environment. So, they have a different kind of stereotypical attitude for themselves, which is actually wrong, and they indulge in negative behaviors which actually diminish their own performance. We can say that there are serious implications of stereotype threat for the workplace, such as it can significantly impact everyday interactions, leading to underperformance on test, performance evaluations, training exercises and negotiations. That okay, if I will approach a particular customer or particular manager, maybe he will not try to understand my opinion, he will not be able to negotiate with me because I am coming from a different group. So, he carries that threat in form of stigma and tend to fail at every point of performance. It leads to disengagement, poor job attitude, reluctance to seek feedback and poor performance on the employees experiencing the threat. This is the but obvious consequence of being stereotyped or experiencing stereotype threat, because the attitude becomes weak to perceive oneself as more competent and able in comparison to the other co-workers. At the same hand, organizations can combat stereotype threat by treating employees as individuals and not highlighting any group differences. Maybe in any organization or any workplace or any company, 2 or 3 workers are coming from same ethnic or racial background and they are being stereotyped. Definitely, organizations only have to take that step, the corrective action, that how employees coming from different background have to be treated equally and not stereotyped. If they are not stereotyped, definitely they are not discriminated as well. Increasing awareness of how stereotypes may be perpetuated, especially when developing policies and practices. People from different diverse background must be given appropriate training regarding the policies and procedures that are being implemented in organization and how to deal with this kind of threats and discrimination. Reducing differential and preferential treatment through objective assessments, confronting macroaggressions against minority groups and adopting transparent practices that signal the value of all employees. That means, it is not only about discrimination, even giving special treatments to specific group of people should also be reduced or avoided, so that there is reduced sense of discrimination and stereotypical threat among people. Now, here macroaggressions mean that people tend to become more aggressive in a very covert manner, that how people will react. Maybe it can be in form of frowning expressions, maybe it can be in form of tone or pitch that I do not like you, and the pitch also goes in a different form. It is about body language, how you tend to discriminate or become stereotypical for the other person. So, these are the ways where we can reduce stereotype and discrimination. So, we are through with the understanding of diversity in organizations, that along with diversity comes equity and inclusion, and at the same time how organizations can make an effort to reduce discrimination and stereotypes and foster equity and diversity. In the next discussion, we will talk about some other factors, superficial factors that lead to diversity. That is all for the discussion. Thank you so much.